you work for Mexar,
Correct.
and you are the owner and the managing director. And it was founded back in 2008, I believe.
That's right, yeah.
And you were producing water-based pigment inks for textiles. You have since pivoted to DTF, direct-to-film. Can you explain a bit more about how that came about, what happened, and just the journey and how you got there?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, as you say, we started the company in 2008, where we spotted a gap in the market in industrial inkjet, in the textile sector, where a lot of the larger ink companies were concentrating on dye-based ink formulations, and we knew that pigment-based inks were going to be a big part of the future. Like many people, we massively underestimated how long this was going to take to mature, how long the market would take to mature. But we set on our journey we had the formulation knowledge in this space to develop pigment-based inks for textiles. Our timing kind of sucked in 2008. There was the global financial crash, and we'd just set up a new company. Luckily, we'd already gathered some finance to start up, so we had a bit of breathing space. But what happened was the projects we were working on at the time, it was OEM-based projects for large, wide-format printers, and there was no credit available for people, so printers weren't being sold, and that project kind of got squeezed pretty quickly. So we had to reevaluate where we were going to work, and there was an established market. It was still small, but for DTG printing. So we started working in DTG, developed some formulations there, and learned an awful lot about how to develop white inks and high levels of titanium dioxide in water-based systems. The next few years for us, we continued to develop textile formulations and license some of our technology to larger companies, which was a strategy that made sense for us as a company. Then we kind of fast forward on to the pandemic, and this is by far the biggest challenge we've ever faced as a company. And to be honest, you know, as many are, we're still recovering from that. A lot of our work previously had been contract R&D for larger companies in development projects in textile, decor, that sort of thing. As COVID hit, this revenue just stopped overnight. We faced a bit of a cliff edge. We'd lost a lot of revenue. And we also were facing the looming prospect of a hard Brexit. And as an exporter into Europe, this is it's quite uncertain times. Pretty stressful, a lot of sleepless nights, lost a bit of hair. And then the next challenge, but opportunity, was my business partner at the time wanted to retire. So we had some big decisions to make on the business. So I decided to take majority ownership, but we needed to change the strategy of the business and not rely so much on R&D contracts, but I wanted to build a product portfolio for the company to make it a bit more resilient. So this time, sorry, I've got to go closer. Sorry. So when we were looking at our product portfolio, we had knowledge in water-based pigment inks for textiles, but we needed something new, something that was going to fit our profile, that was easier to sell. As a small company selling third-party inks, it can be difficult. And this time, timing worked in our favor. My Facebook profile was getting spammed with videos from China. I was getting sent messages from Chinese people I'd never met before of this new printing technique, this transfer printing technique for textiles. And this was direct-to-film, or DTF. Now, I was a little skeptical at first, but I was getting so many videos, I thought, I've got to look into this. So we invested in a machine and some inks, and I was amazed by two things. First was the output of DTF. It was fantastic. I was really amazed at the quality of the print. But the other thing I was amazed by is our printer clogged within 5 days, and it was pretty shocking. So we sat down as a team and thought there must be something we can do here with our knowledge in ink formulation. We should be able to provide a more reliable solution. So with DTF, it really hits the sweet spot of our technology. It's water-based pigment, textile, white inks, open systems. For us, this was a real sweet spot. So that's what we embarked our journey into DTF. So the knowledge from all our work with DTG a few years back and all our wide format, really paid off getting into DTF.
Okay, excellent. That sounds like quite the journey. So you touched on this already. DTF emerged from China, it disrupted the industry. You've already sort of answered part of this already. How did Mexar adapt, and what advantages do you think you had over competitors?
So DTF has been talked about today as a paradigm shift in how things have been developed. We're used to inkjet developments happening in Europe, America, Japan, but this is a real one of the first that's really been developed in China and come over to the West. And it's a bit of a wake-up call for us all in the West that this won't be the last time that this happens. The advantages we held, I think, were we're ahead of curve on the development process because of the work we'd done in DTG. We also sort of ruled out the fad factor pretty quickly. A lot of people thought that DTF was going to be a fad; it was going to go away. But we lost that skepticism pretty quickly when we saw the results and saw how quickly this was disrupting the industry. We managed to manipulate our ink formulations. It wasn't easy, but we managed to manipulate them pretty quickly. It was a steep learning curve to learn the whole process. And then other advantages we hold. About 7 years ago, we made some sort of formulation rules within the company. We were looking at how to clean up our ink formulations, and we wanted to remove all the harmful glycols that were in some of our ink formulations. We successfully did that in our textile inks, but we took those rules forward into DTF. So we got a sort of formulation rule book, if you like. So when we were developing our inks, my chief chemist often jokes that...
just quickly, sorry to interrupt, how big is your team, just so that we know?
We're very small, there's only 5 of us. But my chemist often jokes that I make him formulate with one hand tied behind his back because I won't let him use some of the nastier co-solvents that are very good at what they do. Safety is a big part of our formulations, and that's one advantage that we have. But one of the key pillars of our development to all our developments has been our speed of development. Someone was mentioning today about the complex developments within corporate structures, and it takes a long time to even justify projects. We have very fast development times, and that helps us to get to the market quicker. We also manufacture our batches of ink on relatively small batches very regularly, which is quite important for white ink, which has a shelf life, a lower shelf life than most other inks. So that allows the inks, when they get to the end user, to be in the best possible condition. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. So talk to us a bit more, if you don't mind, about sort of indie ink. So you set up a direct-to-customer web shop, which is quite a big part of your revenue. So you're selling direct to consumer, direct to the customer. So that's given you some market understanding of what the customer needs are and all that. How did that influence the company and the company growth?
So, as I said, when we were emerging from COVID and looming Brexit, and we were looking at, once we had our DTF formulations developed, our first generation, we were looking at how to sell them. We were investigating resellers, other ink companies. One thing was for sure, we really wanted to capture some UK market share to try and no one knew what was going to happen as the fallout from Brexit, so we wanted some UK market share. And we decided to set up a web shop, as you mentioned, and branded it as Indie Ink, playing on the fact we're an independent, small company, like a lot of these print service providers. there are a few reasons we went down this route. First of all, we needed to generate revenue, and by selling direct to the print service providers, we were selling at a pretty good margin for a manufacturer. So this was great at generating some quick revenue into the business. We wanted to capture some UK market share, but most importantly, we wanted to, with this new technology, we wanted to gain some understanding of how it works, the problems that print service providers really encounter in the process. It's quite a complex consumable printing process because you've got the ink, film, powder, you've got external conditions such as temperature, humidity. There's all sorts that can go wrong for the end user. And by selling direct to that end user, we hear firsthand exactly what the issues are, whether it's formulation issue or process issue or conditions, and learn how to fix these issues for the customer.
So you work really closely with them and
absolutely.
Hold their hand
If you're selling ink to a customer, you're the first person they're going to call when they've got an issue. It doesn't matter what the issue is; it's always the ink's fault. If you're an ink guy, you know that. But yeah, so we really gained an understanding of what the problems are in the process, and that taught us an awful lot about DTF. And that learning sort of led on to our next generations of inks when we saw how we needed to improve the formulations. The learnings from dealing with the end users sort of took us on to the further developments. So yeah, Indie took off really well. It's been a lot of hard work dealing with, small end users who are, quibbling over the price of 250 mils of ink. It's quite hard work, but it's been really rewarding. And I think this year it's going to account for about a third of our revenue, which is great.
Fantastic. And you're the only UK manufacturer of DTF inks with the, I don't know how to pronounce this, Ercotex certification, is that right?
Ercotex, Ecotex, yeah, potatoes. Yeah, so yeah, we, as far as I'm aware, we're one of the only UK manufacturers of DTF ink. So that, most of the ink for DTF has been made in China. So one of the advantages we have is short supply chains to Europe, which is great from a shelf life and sustainability point of view. This ink isn't sitting on a boat for 2 months and running out of shelf life. But there are a few other sort of safety aspects that we put into the formulations. As I mentioned, we removed all the harmful glycols. That's ethylene glycol and diethylene glycol, which most of our competitors still have at least one of those in. And
is this a conscious decision to be more sort of sustainable and
not just sustainable, but a safety aspect?
Safety, okay.
Yeah. So there's sustainability is important for us, but safety from a user's point of view is also important. When I don't want my guys in production dealing with chemicals, they don't necessarily have to. So if we can create a safer product for us and for users, I think that's great. We also go a step further with the glycols we do use to make sure they're from vegetable sources and non-palm sources. The Ecotex certification was quite a big milestone for us. It's an important benchmark in the textile industry, so that was a big milestone when we achieved that.
Okay, fantastic. And so what do you see in the future of DTF printing? So what do you see the big trends that might be happening? What are your goals and your plans for innovation within your company?
Sure. So from Mexar's side, we're about to launch our third generation inks, where we're very excited about those. The white inks showing really incredible opacity, but maintaining our reliability and safety aspects. So we're very excited about that. Overall, DTF has seen this unbelievable growth curve that sort of, I think, shocked most people. And it doesn't seem to be plateauing just yet. So I still think there's still a lot of growth to continue. As general trends in technology developments, I think speed is one of the big drivers. Speed of print isn't necessarily an issue. You can always print faster, more heads, faster heads, bigger machines. But I think one of the key issues with speed is how you cure the product. That there's a lot of work is going to have to go into the ovens and to dry and cure the product. There's been quite a lot of talk about powderless DTF. So instead of applying a polyurethane powder onto the print, you jet a polyurethane with inkjet on top. There's a lot of work has gone into it. I'm not convinced just yet. The results don't look great. The longevity of print isn't good enough. It's not washed fast enough. I'm sure there'll be a lot further work, but whether that's going to be a big part of the industry, I'm not convinced.
So you say you're quite a small team. So if you're doing a lot of sort of R&D type stuff and innovation, how do you cope with running sort of the everyday business, and how do you balance that out? It sounds like quite a juggling act.
Yeah, it is. But I've got a great team behind me. I've got someone who spends her life organising me because I'm pretty scattered, and then a great team of some chemists who are fantastic at production and the development side. So we sort of work together to work out what we want from our technology and just spend the time in the lab developing it. We've had enough years experience to do it now. Okay,
and just one additional question, if you don't mind. And what advice would you give to a small company competing with bigger, larger giants? And what would you say to them?
That's
a bit of an open-ended one.
I think so. I think work with big companies. As a small company, you have advantages. And speed is speed and versatility, agility. Yeah, they're the main aspects that I think a lot of corporate companies crave, because they're bogged down with the internal sort of machine. So I think work with big companies to your advantage. Play on your strengths.
So partnerships,
absolutely.
And maybe sort of
partnerships in developing with them. We've licensed technology in the past on a number of occasions. Some have gone well, some haven't. So protect yourself well. But I think you can see as huge threats. My competitors are massive multinational companies, and it's difficult to compete against. But I think there are strengths as a small company that you can use to work with these guys. Some of our customers are other ink companies.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.